Good evening everyone, I am Vishal Salsekar and today we are going to discuss the news today of 13th August. Right. So in this edition of News Today discussion, there are total 6 main news that we are going to cover. The first news is regarding government's tightening of the rules for the OCI card holders. Right. The next news is about the Indian Ports Bill. After that, we are going to discuss regarding the trade restrictions on certain goods from the Bangladesh. So there were certain restrictions that were put on the goods imported from the Bangladesh. We are going to discuss about that. The next important article is about the insolvency and the bankruptcy code, that there were certain amendments that were proposed and now those amendments are at the select committee of the parliament. Right. The next article is about the All India Consumer Price Index for July, that has highlighted the idea regarding what are the trends with respect to the inflation, right? The last article that we are going to cover is regarding the India's semiconductor mission. Why the semiconductor things are important and why the government is focusing upon that specific aspect. After that, we are going to discuss certain quick updates. So let's start the discussion with the first main news, which is regarding the union government tightening the rules for the OCI card holders, right? So there are certain changes that are done with respect to the OCI card. Now, from the perspective of the UPSC Civil Services examination, from the perspective of the GS paper 2, the citizenship is an important topic as a matter of constitution that is mentioned in the constitution. The Citizenship Amendment Act that was before this, so there were certain issues with respect to that particular Amendment Act, and after that there have been now certain changes that have been now incorporated, right? So we have to discuss about that. And apart from that, who are the OCI card holders? So they are constituting the part of the Indian diaspora. So from the perspective of again GS paper 2, but now this time from the international relations perspective, again this topic is important. So let's have the discussion regarding the OCI cards. Now see, if we talk about the diaspora, so there are multiple constituents of diaspora. If we give a data with respect to the diaspora that India has with different countries, means the people of Indian origin or previously might had the citizenship of India or have their ancestral roots from India, now residing in certain other countries, maybe as non-resident Indians. So there may be the NRIs, they are part of the Indian diaspora. There are the person of Indian origin PIO, and then there are overseas citizens of India. So they are the three category of the people. We can say that they are part of the diaspora. So now if we talk briefly about the total number of the Indian diaspora, because from the perspective of question, if there is any question with respect to the Indian diaspora, there can be this data with respect to the diaspora can be quoted. So roughly 35.42 million people from Indian diaspora are residing in different countries. The most important country where the highest volume is there is United States, and after that there are many countries which are important like the UAE, like the UK, Canada, right? So these are the prominent countries which are hosting the Indian diaspora. Now why we are talking about this? Because the NRIs are the citizens of India who are temporarily residing in other countries. For all the practical purposes, they are the Indian citizens. So out of this 35.42 million, roughly 16 million around people are the non-resident Indians. Apart from that, these PIO and OCI, the person of Indian origin, means those particular people or the persons who originate or who had their origin in India, but right now are the citizen of any other country. So government of India had initiated two specific programs, one with respect to the PIOs and another was with respect to the overseas citizens of India. So there are a lot of overlapping, and hence government in 2015 have merged both. So now the PIOs and OCIs are categorized under the OCI category, right? So this is the first thing with respect to the Indian diaspora. So if we talk about the PIO and OCI, roughly more than 18 million people from the Indian origin are residing in different countries. So that means they are not the citizen of India, but they have some ancestral roots or they fulfill certain criteria with respect to the citizenship, and hence they get certain benefits, Right. Now, when we talk about the changes or recent notification, so under the Section 7D of the Citizenship Act of 1955, the government has laid out a notification which had mentioned that if there is a OCI or the overseas citizen of India who enjoys certain privileges, because there can be multiple time entry without applying for visa. So there can be long time visa that can be get. Matlab, they need not to apply visa every time. Once they get the passport where the OCI related certification is already done, the registration has already been done as the OCI, or they are designated as the overseas citizen of India, they can enter into India multiple times. Without their duration of stay, matlab in that duration of stay, they need not to again and again register with the foreign registration office. So they get certain privileges. Now when they are getting certain privileges, so what government has now done? So the registration, government has said that the registration of these people can be revoked. Matlab, they cannot enjoy endless benefits of this particular scheme. So in the case, if they are first sentenced for at least 2 years in the prison, matlab for any specific criminal activity, if they are sentenced for minimum 2 years in prison, then their overseas citizens of India registration can be cancelled. If not this, if there is any charge sheet, means if there is some charge sheet for a certain high order criminal cases jahan par the punishment is for roughly 7 years or more. Agar in any specific criminal activity, if the punishment is for 7 or more years, and if there is a charge sheet that is filed, then in that particular case also there can be revoking of this overseas citizenship of India for that particular person. Now you have to tell me, does India allows the dual citizenship? Because we are talking about the overseas citizen of India, that means some way it is considered as the dual citizenship. So you have to answer this particular thing, that whether India allows the dual citizenship, yes or no, right? So now what are the overseas citizens of India? So this is introduced in 2005 as an amendment to the Citizenship Act. So the OCI is deriving its power from the Citizenship Act, and in 2015, as we have discussed, the PIO and the OCIs were merged. Now, the answer to that is no dual citizenship is applied. So, though it appears that it is a dual citizenship because you are getting certain benefits as a citizen, as equivalent to the citizen of India, but there are lacking with respect to the political power, purchasing certain economic assets, right? So, those particular disadvantages will still be there despite you might be having the OCI registration or the OCI related citizenship, right? So this is not equivalent to the dual citizenship. Now you have to also tell me that which particular countries or the prominent countries allows the dual citizenship, because UPSC can ask these questions. Now next is regarding the grounds for the cancellation of the OCI registration, because there are certain other grounds. Because one thing we have discussed is with respect to when there is 2 year or more ka imprisonment, if that is there, or if there is a charge sheet for the 7 or more years in any specific criminal activity, if that is there, then there can be revoking of the OCI registration. Now apart from that, even there are certain other grounds for the cancellation of the OCI registration. Means even if you get the OCI registration, then also in certain other cases your OCI registration can be revoked. So if that is obtained by fraud, means you might have hidden certain information from the authorities. If there is disaffection towards the Constitution of India, means having registered as the OCI citizen, if you are having disaffection towards the Constitution, means you are doing any activities which might not be considered as the constitutional activity or the activity permitted by the Constitution. If you do have any reservation towards that, then that particular OCI registration can be revoked. Interest of the sovereignty and the integrity of India. If you are doing anything which is against the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of India, like the citizenship of individual, OCI registration can also be revoked. Then the security of India, friendly relation with the foreign country, means suppose when you are OCI, that means you are citizen of any other country. If you are giving some statement, maybe you are propagating certain activities which is hampering the India and that particular country's relations, in that case also the OCI registration registration can be revoked. And lastly, in the interest of the general public. So this gives a lot of power to the government to decide that on what basis this particular registration can be revoked. Now, what are the benefits? So we have already talked with respect to the benefit. So for general purposes, they are enjoying equivalent benefits to the ordinary citizen of the country, except certain things like the political participation, like certain economic related restrictions. So there is multiple entries. They can come to India multiple times without applying for visa again and again. Then multi-purpose. So the visa is not like a tourist visa or something like that. It is a multi-purpose visa. So the duration of stay also need not to be again and again concerned about ki bhai itne din we have stayed. So that does not matter that much. Lifelong visa. So once registered as an overseas citizen of India, they get the lifelong visa. Okay. So they are also exempted from the registration with the foreign regional registration officers or the foreigners registration office. So in the case when they are staying in India, suppose karo, if they are staying for a longer period of time, it's not like they have to go again and again to the foreign regional registration officers and they have to register themselves. So there is an exemption that is provided to these people. Apart from that, there is general parity, but then in certain cases, they are not equivalent. See, NRIs are the Indian citizen, right? So they are having comparatively general parity with the NRIs, but except for acquisition of the agricultural property or the plantation property. Apart from that, the political participation also. So these are certain restrictions that are there on the OCI card holders, right? Now next is with respect to the eligibility for the registration of OCI. So who are eligible for the overseas citizenship of India or being registered as a overseas citizen of India? So you should be eligible for the citizen of India at 26th January 1950, or you must be a citizen of India on January 26, 1950. दोनों में से कोई भी एक criteria हो, or else you belong to the territory that became part of India later on and then you might have relinquished your citizenship. ठीक है? If a child or the grandchild of a great grandchild of such a citizen, जो भी citizen था above 3 categories, or who is a minor child and whose both parents are citizen of India, or one of the parents is citizen of India, means there should be certain roots. ऐसा नहीं है कि if you do not have any roots with India, you can get the OCI citizenship. So there should be certain criteria that should be fulfilled. Next is the spouse of the foreign origin citizen of India, means you might have born and brought up in the foreign, but then you are a citizen of India now, or basically in that particular case, the spouse of the foreign origin of an OCI card holder. Matlab, if you are a spouse of a OCI card holder also. So see, there are a lot of things mentioned over there and there are too much technicalities also. Generally, UPSC does not go into that much details, but yes, having a clear idea with respect to the comparison between the OCI and NRI and the among two and the general ordinary citizen. So what are the differences that are there? You should be aware regarding. But then there are certain exceptions also. So what are the exceptions? Who had been the citizen of India in past, like from the Pakistan, Bangladesh, or any other country which the government designates by the notification, in that case, you are not eligible for the overseas citizen of India. Because if you see before 15th of August 1950, in that particular case, the entire Pakistan and Bangladesh was also part of this country, right? So in that case, there are certain exceptions that are being provided, right? So this is the thing with respect to the overseas citizen of India. Now, how UPSC had asked the previously question with respect to this. So with reference to India, consider the following statements. There is only one citizenship and one domicile. You have to answer this particular question. A citizen by birth only can become the head of the state. With respect to United States and India, this kind of comparison is being asked generally, that in United States, the naturally born person is eligible for the presidentship. What is the case for India? Answer this. Foreigner once granted the citizenship cannot be deprived of it under any circumstances. Now, this is the absolute statement. Now, according to your logic, try to answer this question. Clear? Like this, the question is generally asked regarding the citizenship related topics. The next important topic is regarding the Lok Sabha's passing the Indian Ports Bill of 2025. So again, from the perspective of the UPSC CSE General Studies Paper 3, which is related to the Indian economy and infrastructure, along with the transport, communication and all the associated aspects like the policy regulation, it is an important topic. What are the changes that have been introduced and how it is going to change the port related scenario, whether it is about the efficiency, whether it is about reducing the turnaround time, whether it is about rationalizing the cost, whether it is about the good governance. All these things can become the part of this, right? So let's start the discussion with respect to the key highlights of this bill. Now see, previously there was already a bill which was known as the Indian Ports Act of, not bill, a specific act that was there, Indian Ports Act of 1908. Now there was already an existing act. Now what was the issue? See, the timeline 1908. Now since 1908 the scenario has changed a lot. Whether it is about the focusing on efficiency, whether it is about the volume, whether it is about the rationalization of the trade with different countries, whether it is about the global scenarios, whether it is about the nature of disputes, everything has changed from that particular point of time. Hence, there was a need for ensuring a holistic and comprehensive bill and specific provisions with respect to the management of the ports, and hence this particular bill was introduced. So what are the changes that have been introduced? So there have been establishment of the Maritime State Development Council. So this particular body has got the statutory status. Now once the bill will become act, this will get the statutory status. So Maritime State Development Council, now this is being established by the central government, and this will be a tool to ensure the cooperative federalism. Matlab, there will be members from the central government also, there will be members from the state governments, and then apart from that even certain officials who are responsible for carrying out those particular tasks. So for example, from the side of Union government, Union Minister of Port, Shipping and Waterways will become the chair of this body, Maritime State Development Council. Now what task it will be doing? So there are two type of prominent ports, the major ports and the non-major ports that are there. Okay? So in order to administer, in order to develop a policy framework, in order to ensure the development of these particular ports, whether the major or the non-major ports, this body will be responsible. And when there is a cooperation between the center and the state members, so in that case there will be comparatively better coordinated development. So there will be ex officio chairperson in the form of the Union Minister of Port, Shipping and Waterways. Next is regarding the statutory recognition to the State Maritime Board. Now when there is already a Maritime State Development Council, this is for the entire country related architecture, right? Because in the state, if there is any major port, so the central or the union government will be having comparatively a major oversight on that particular port, right? But what will happen with respect to the non-major ports? So there will be a body, state maritime boards, that will be created for every state in order to govern, ensure the development and better regulation of the non-major ports. So the state maritime board, which might be already there in multiple states where this particular ports are there, now this body have got the statutory recognition, right? So member from the concerned state will be member of this particular body. Now this will be constituted by the concerned state government. So next is regarding this. Apart from that, there is also the provision for the dispute resolution, because see, generally hota kya hai, when there is a specific authority that is governing the port, there is a state government also, then there are people who are utilizing that infrastructure. So there are chances that the dispute might be arising. So in that case, who is going to resolve the dispute? So the dispute resolution commission or committee is being framed under this particular act. So there is a dispute resolution committee in state basis that will be formed. So what this particular act is doing, this is barring the civil courts to have the or to go for the matters with respect to these particular ports related matter. Now once it will be decided by the dispute resolution committee, the earlier mandate is 6 months, and then there can be extension for 3 months 2 times, and then 12 months ka maximum time period is there in which they have to resolve. Once there is, suppose karo there is any kind of dissatisfaction with the verdict of this dispute resolution committee, then the concerned party can move to the High Court. So the appeal will lie to the High Court. So this is regarding the dispute resolution committee which will be formed at the states level. Then there is a aspect with respect to port tariff. Now, once you are operationalizing the port, there will be some things with respect to the tariff, whether it is the major port or the minor port or the non-major ports, right? So, for the major ports, the board of the major port authority or the board of director of that specific major port related board will be deciding the port tariff. So in the case of the major port, it will be the board of directors or the board of major port authority. And in the case of the non-major ports, it will be done by the state maritime board. So the state maritime board will be responsible for identifying, fixing the tariff for the port, right? Next is regarding the notification of the new port and altering the limits of the existing port. So now, as there is cooperative federalism that have been ensured, so for the notification of new port or altering the existing ports limit, this is also being done by the central government, but there will be consultation with the state government. So central government with consultation of the state government can ensure a new port or altering the boundary of the existing port, right? Then mega ports, sometimes the larger port which are doing multiple functions, right, they are designated as the mega port. So in that case also, central government in consultation with the respective state government can decide the criteria that based upon what specific criteria we are going to designate a port as the mega port, right? So that particular criteria is also being provided. Now the environmental safety and compliance, now we know that with respect to this particular port management related things, so there is a need to ensure the environmental sustainability. Because when the ships are moving, there may be issue with respect to the greenhouse gas emission, there may be issue with respect to pollution, there may be issue with respect to the discharge of the ballast water, and that particular water may introduce certain new species which might be hampering the biodiversity of the other region. So as per the conventions of IMO जो international body है, International Maritime Organization, there are certain convention. For example, MARPOL, which is with respect to the marine pollution, right? The International Convention for the Marine Pollution. So based upon these rules, there have been the safety and the compliance with respect to the environmental related things have been ensured. And also the Ballast Water Management Convention, based upon that, there have been the standard procedures that have been provided in this specific bill. And once it will be passed by both the House of Parliament, gets the signature of the President, it will become the act, right? So these are the prominent feature with respect to this bill with respect to the port. Now when we talk about the ports in India, as of now there are total 12 major ports. Now there is a proposal with respect to making this Vadhavan port in Maharashtra as the 13th major port. As of now, there are 12 major ports. You can see the map. In Gujarat, it is Kandla. Then in the Goa, it is Marmagao. Then Mangaluru port is there. Then Kochi port is there. So roughly, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Vadhavan is as of now not completely operational, right? So there have been laying of the foundation stone, but as of now, operational 12 major ports that are there. So 6 on this particular side, and then Kolkata is there, then Paradip is there in Odisha, Vishakhapatnam is there in Andhra Pradesh, then the Ennore, which is the Kamarajar port is there, and the Chennai port that is there in Tamil Nadu, and apart from that, there is also a Tuticorin port. So these are the total 12 major ports along with the proposed one. Apart from that, there are total 213 non-major ports. So the major ports are being managed by the Major Ports Authorities Act of 2021, the main oversight by the central government, and then minor ports are being managed by the State Maritime Board. Now, as per this particular act, this State Maritime Board will become the statutory bodies. Okay? So as to ensure a holistic framework across the different states. Now, when we talk about the PYQs, these are the kind of PYQs that you can expect with respect to the port. In the mains also, there can be questions. So the question that was asked in 2023 with respect to port, consider the following pair. Kamarajar port, the first major port in India registered as a company. The Mundra port, largest privately owned port in India. The Vishakhapatnam port, the largest container port in India. You have to answer this question and ensure that which is the correct answer. Suppose if there is anything which is not correctly matched, then what is the correct one? That also you should be mentioning. This is a task for you. So answer this particular. next is regarding India's imposition of certain restriction on the import of some goods from the Bangladesh or certain category of goods. Now, from the perspective of economy, which is very important because it is in some way hindering the trade, but even from the international relations perspective, because right now, if you see the dynamics between India and Bangladesh, after 2024, when there was exit of Sheikh Hasina and there was an interim government under the leadership of Muhammad Yunus that was established, since then there have been a downgrading of the relationship between India and Bangladesh. And Bangladesh is comparatively moving more closer to which country? China, right? So in that case, we have to have a clear idea regarding what are the things why Bangladesh is important for us, what are the areas of cooperation, and right now what are the challenges with respect to Bangladesh or dealing with Bangladesh we are facing. So all these things we'll discuss, right? So GS2 and GS3, it is an important topic. Now, what are the recent restrictions? So in simple words, the restriction are with respect to certain products where the Bangladeshi government is providing subsidies to the farmers. Suppose karo, if there is a product of 100 rupees, if your government is giving the subsidy of 50 rupees, now effectively that product is now of 50 rupees. But suppose karo, on the global market, there is the price of that product is, let's say 80 or 90 rupees. Now, if you export that product at 50 rupees, don't you think so it is going to disrupt the global trade? Because at your country, that product is comparatively cheaper because of the subsidies you are getting. But eventually, that product is costlier. And if you send your product, if you sell your product to the other country at that price only, this will hamper the country's own production of those products. And in that case, the entire domestic production and domestic market get disrupted. And that's how the India has provided certain things that what you are doing, what kind of subsidies you are providing for some goods. For example, jute, raw jute or the products that are developed from the jute. So in these, you are providing a lot of subsidies. And if those are entering in India, these are impacting the India jute industry. And that's why government has put certain restriction on the ready-made garment and the jutes. And what kind of restriction means? There will be this free facilitation will not be provided on the Indian ports, and only one port that has been provided in this case is the Nhava Sheva port. So it's not like only through the sea ports the things are coming from the countries like Bangladesh. There are also the land port, because some of the northeast states are having boundary with the Bangladesh. So you have to also tell me that which of the India's northeastern and other states which are making boundary with the Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is having the largest boundary as far as the India is concerned, right? So restriction has been made on the ready-made garment and the jute related products. Apart from that, banned the export by Bangladesh of fruits, processed food items. So there are certain fruits and some processed food items like some kind of packaged drinks, flavor fruit drinks, like all these things have been now not allowed through the land ports of India, which are there in Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram and Tripura. Now through this, you can get an idea that there are certain states which are making boundary with the Bangladesh, because that's how you are going to have the land port. Next is that in March 2025, what India had done, India had revoked the transshipment facility. Means, suppose if Bangladesh have to send something to UK, what they might be doing? They might be utilizing India's land port, then they are sending those products to the Indian ports, and through the Indian ports, that is being sent to the third country, which is UK. So transshipment is something which you are utilizing this other country in order to ship the product to the final destination, right? So India has revoked the transshipment facility which was provided under the 2020 agreement. So this also India had revoked. So this shows that how the relations which were one time during the Sheikh Hasina's rule was comparatively flourishing, but right now they are on the deteriorating stage. Yahan tak clear hai? Now next is, see, ऊपर वाली चीज तो context के लिए है, but what is important is this. What are the issues with respect to the India and Bangladesh? Right now, there are multiple issues that India and Bangladesh facing. First is increasing influence of China. Now see what China is doing, either through the land route or either through maritime route. China is trying to contain India. There is a policy which is known as the string of pearls, through which what China is doing, China is creating multiple ports in the surrounding or the neighborhood of India. For example, Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. There is Gwadar port in Pakistan. There are certain bridges that are being developed and certain port authorities that are being managed by China in the Maldives region. Apart from that, whether you talk about Myanmar, whether you talk about the Bangladesh, so there have been a lot of influence of China that is increasing. And why that is increasing? Because of its Belt and Road Initiative. So through the Belt and Road Initiative, China has done that. Now what China is further doing, since May 2025, China has started the trilateral discussion. Means there is China, Pakistan, and they are including third countries in order to cooperate in the region. Though they are saying that this is for the economic cooperation, but ultimate objective is to contain India, because it is done in the India's neighborhood, trying to better cooperation with the India's neighborhood country. So it was done with Afghanistan first. Okay. Then Afghanistan joined Belt and Road Initiative, and similarly that particular meeting was done with Bangladesh. So China, Pakistan and Bangladesh met, and that led to the increasing influence of China in the Bangladesh region. And that's how, under the leadership of Muhammad Yunus, even Bangladesh is now inviting China to do a lot of infrastructural project in their country. And that will be the strategic issues for India, because if the China will be having a lot of access to Bangladesh, it will be having major repercussions as far as the northeastern states are concerned, right? Then political instability, because there is no politically elected government. It is just the appointed government under the leadership of Muhammad Yunus. After 2024, there have not been any popular elections. So still there have been political instability. Then rising radicalization and ill treatment of minorities. So we have seen that how the minorities are being treated, the temples are being destructed, right? The religious places have been attacked. Even the people have been attacked. So there have been an issue with respect to the minority rights protection. Then the internal security issue. So if there are issues with respect to the minority rights, if the Bangladesh is allowing a lot presence of China, and even eventually through this to Pakistan, that might be creating some kind of internal security issue for India. And along with that, already there have been one issue with respect to Rohingya, which are coming from Myanmar to Bangladesh, and then they can enter from Bangladesh to India. If better relations with Bangladesh, in that case, Bangladesh can prevent that entering to India. But if there are deteriorating relations, then those Rohingyas can be utilizing the territories of Bangladesh to enter into India. So these can be the issues. Next is with respect to the river water dispute. So already with India, Bangladesh is having dispute with respect to the Teesta water. There have not been any specific agreement signed till date. So when there is no such agreement, and when India and Bangladesh wanted to cooperate and resolve this dispute mutually, now Bangladesh is inviting China. Now Bangladesh is inviting China in order to ensure development of dam and the entire region with respect to Teesta. Now this is going to impact the India's interest, because India wanted to resolve this and ensure the development of this particular river related project to Bangladesh. But now Bangladesh is inviting China. So these are the issues that are pertaining with respect to India and Bangladesh relations, right? Now why Bangladesh is important? Because if you see the geography, the Bangladesh is one such region which is having access to almost most of the states in the northeast, and there is a chicken's neck or the Siliguri corridor, and Bangladesh is having the major presence over there. So if there have been any instability in the Bangladesh, that might be causing issues with respect to the northeastern states. Also the issues with respect to insurgency, issues with respect to internal security might be more if there is instability in Bangladesh, and also a lot of infrastructural project, better trade that was governed with Bangladesh. So in all these cases, Bangladesh was important. So that's why we are striving for the stability within Bangladesh. Also for the regional cooperation within the region of Bay of Bengal. So if you see this particular map, I'll show you through the port related map. Just see this map. So this is the region of the Bay of Bengal. Now here the major country that is situated over here is the Bangladesh. So this entire region is of Bangladesh. So it is having major presence in the Bay of Bengal. So if you want to have comparatively better stability, having Bangladesh better cooperation is must. And that's why India is focusing on the BIMSTEC, where the Bangladesh is a major player. Now with respect to the Bangladesh, There can be even the means related question because the topic is again and again there in news. And apart from that, the prelims based question that was asked, like the value of India-Sri Lanka trade has consistently increased last decade. Mein. Textile and textile article constitute important item of the trade between India and Bangladesh. Now, recently the export related restrictions, or basically that particular restriction have been put on this. Like when Bangladesh is exporting this textile or textile article or associated products, so India is preventing its port or closing its port for those products, right? Then last 5 years, Nepal has been the largest trading partner of India in South Asia. Now this is through the commonsensical thing you could have solved. So now answer this question also. This is the way the question is being framed by UPSC. Also from the means perspective can be the question with respect to India and Bangladesh, or role of China in struggle of better relation between India and Bangladesh. That can also be asked with respect to UPSC. Next is regarding the Insolvency and the Bankruptcy Code Amendment Bill 2025, which is referred to the Select Committee of the Parliament. What is Select Committee? Basically, these are certain temporary committees that can be formed by the Parliament or the specific House of Parliament time and again in order to study that bill, in order to analyze that bill, and in order to suggest some recommendations. So this is the method of parliamentary scrutiny over any specific legislation, right? Now, why it is important? Because from the GS paper 3 Indian economy, the insolvency and the bankruptcy is an important topic, because if you are going to initiate any specific industry, if there are issues, if there might be unsustainable thing in those business, you might want to wind up that particular business. But in case of India, it was a difficult process, and hence in order to guide that insolvency and the associated things, there was this particular code, Insolvency and the Bankruptcy Code, that was laid out in 2016. And then there was certain need of some changes with respect to specific provisions of this. That's why it is important. This amendment is important. Now, what was the basic bill? What was some important feature? So, Insolvency and the Bankruptcy Code that was laid out in 2016. So, this was an umbrella legislation with respect to the insolvency and the bankruptcy related proceedings, so that those who had invested in a business, they can get their fair share. And apart from that, those person who are operating that business, whether it is an individual, whether it is a partnership firm, or whether it is a corporate entity, they can get the resolution so that they can be free with those things after the fair remuneration or fair settlement, and then they can shift, or they can initiate a new business, so that the economy will not be stuck in some place, right? That's why this Insolvency and the Bankruptcy Code was laid out. Now, this is for both corporate as well as the individual. So, both for corporate also, for the companies and the corporations, and for the individuals. For both type of cases, it is being solved by the Insolvency and the Bankruptcy Code. Now, this is providing the freedom to exit. Matlab, if you are thinking that the business is not viable, if you are not able to operate that business, you can file for the insolvency, and through which there will be a process that is initiated, and eventually the resolution is provided. Matlab, there may be liquidation, there may be selling of the asset, and those who are the creditors will be provided with the due share, right? Now, it has also replaced the debtor in possession approach with the creditor in control. Matlab, previously it was depending upon the debtor. मतलब जो पैसा ले रहा है, right? Now it is the creditor initiated resolution also. If the creditors think that this person might be defaulting, they can file for the insolvency and the process associated with that, and through that there will be comparatively more power that are now wielded by the creditors, right? Now, there were 4 pillars of this code. First was the insolvency professional. So these are the persons who are designated as the insolvency professionals, who will be following this particular process, who will be acting as the professionals in resolving the insolvency. Then there is an information utility. So this is acting as a database. So this database will be holding all the kind of data or facts with respect to that particular corporation. What is the debt? What are the different asset? What is the financial viability? All these things are being provided in the information utility. So this is the authentic database with respect to the financial structuring of that company. Then adjudicating bodies. So there are adjudicating bodies. For individual, it is the debt recovery tribunal, and and then for the corporation it is the National Company Law Tribunal, NCLT is there. And lastly, it is the Insolvency and the Bankruptcy Board of India, IBBI, which is for the professional support, which is for the policy formulation, which is for understanding this entire process and formulating certain things with respect to the way forward in this process. So these are the 4 pillars with respect to the Insolvency and the Bankruptcy Code. Now, what are the changes that were done in the recent bill? Because right now this is a bill. This has not become the act. Once it will become the act, then this will be the changes will be considered in the existing act. As of now, it is the bill which is pending with the select committee. Now, this is first thing is ensuring the expediting resolution and reducing delay. So right now, this process takes a lot of time because sometimes even the NCLT is not admitting this particular case for the resolution. Now, there have been the mandate to the NCLT that there have to be admitting of this case in the 14 days. Within 14 days, you have to take the case and the resolution plan have to be provided within 30 days. So this is providing the expeditious delivery of the resolution with respect to the cases filed for the resolution. Next is the out of court creditor initiated resolution. So previously through the legal manner only the resolution is being sought. So basically as the judiciary and different tribunal are already having the pendency of the cases. So if there can be any creditor based settlement, so out of the code creditor initiated settlement that can be having comparatively reduction of the case burden on different authorities. So in that case, this particular bill is talking about the out of court creditor initiated resolution. अब इसमें ये भी होगा कि even before filing the formal case there can be resolution. So in that case the what kind of image deterioration of the corporation and because of which the value or the financial value of that company reduces, that might be prevented. So if there is a out of court creditor initiated resolution, ठीक है? Then maximizing value and protecting the stakeholder interest. Now again associated with this only, what is the purpose of this resolution? So that who are the creditor, those should get the maximum value what they deserve, right? And in general, if the person who has initiated a business, that person should be also able to initiate something new after providing the due resolution. So there will be restoring of the corporate insolvency resolution process. So if suppose karo, if there will be some exceptional cases jahan par if the resolution is not accepted to the companies or to the creditors, so in that case there will be corporate insolvency resolution process that can be initiated. In that case, what will be and who will be requesting this? Committee of the creditor. So when the creditor asks ki bhai nahi, we want this corporate insolvency resolution process, in that what they are going to do? They are going to assess the company's financial viability. They will check that whether the company can repay those particular debt, if the things can be good. If that is the thing, then in that case there may be some changes that can be proposed. If not, if the company is not able to repay the debts and if there may be no other options, then in that case the resolution will be done either through the restructuring or through the insolvency, like assets bech ke you will get the money, right? So maximizing value and the protecting the stakeholders' interest. Next is enhancing the governance and the compliance. So sometimes the process of insolvency becomes very complicated. For example, sometimes hota kya hai, there is a large group, under that group there are multiple companies. Now in those groups, if one company had failed, now the credibility of the other company also comes into the picture. So there is a group insolvency framework jahan par without compromising upon the other company's interest, or if resolution have to be provided for 2 or more companies, that can also be done. So it facilitates the joint resolution in the case when within a group one company failed and there might be chance that other company could have failed, can be further failed in future because of the failure of this company, because market value is going to get deteriorated. Next is about the cross border insolvency framework. तो होता क्या है कि sometimes the asset of the company which was funded by some creditors, uske assets may be there in some other countries, right? So in that case there may be overseas assets. Now if the framework is of global level and if there is global recognition, then through other countries also the resolution support you can get, and in this case the cross border insolvency framework is being provided. So it will be ensuring creditors the easy access to the assets in the foreign locations also. So there will be mutual recognition by the different jurisdictions. So beyond the local jurisdiction, there can be accessing of the assets, and this will ensure the better resolution and better value. Next is the clean state principle reinforcement. Matlab, once the entire process is done, the things will be considered as settled. Agar due money has been given, resolution has achieved, now it will be considered that the person can now initiate some new business, so that there should not be some kind of naming and shaming and all these kind of things which are associated with this can be prevented. So the clean state principle, matlab jo ho gaya wo proceedings mein, now that proceedings end and the new things can be started, right, by that particular person. So this is regarding the insolvency and the bankruptcy code. Now in the prelims, the things with respect to the insolvency professionals, then the information facilities and all these things can be asked. And apart from that, with respect to the hierarchy, with respect to the means related question regarding the insolvency can be asked. The next topic is now the topic regarding the India's retail inflation, which has been moderated to the 8-year low to 1.55% in the July 2025. So the inflation is coming down. Now see, the excessive low inflation or excessive high inflation, both are not good for the economy for their own reasons. ठीक है? अगर बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाएगा, people will not be able to afford a lot of things, whether it is the food, fuel and all. And if it goes too low in a economy, then also it is not good for a economy, right? So from the perspective of the Indian economy, this topic is important for the growth, development, inflationary trend and all. Now generally the things that are mentioned in the article are more relevant from the prelims perspective. So there can be prelims based questions that have high probability to be asked. Now another thing I want to clear over here, that it's not important to remember each and every month's inflation data. First thing, you should be having a general idea regarding the trend of the inflation, that what is the trend, what are the different indices, who is the releasing authority of that indices, what is the purpose of that indices, ye zaruri hai that you should be aware of. So all India consumer price index, which is lowest since the on year basis after 2017. So the all India consumer price index, it is at lowest since 2017 say, and the food price index, consumer food price index or the food inflation is in negative 1.76%. Now these are the indicative data, but yes, in order to assess the trend of the economy, it is important. Now why the inflation is declining, that particular thing is important to know. Sometimes it's not necessary that the prices are declining, but what happens that the base year, because there will be assessment of these prices compared to a base year. Ab suppose karo, in the base year the prices were too high, and in that case if you are assessing the prices of the current year compared to that base year, chances are high that the inflation will come less. So this is sometimes because of the favorable base effect, matlab because of the favorable base year jahan par the inflation was high. So because of which there may be decline of inflation. Another is the decline in certain products which are the major constituents in the inflation. For example, the food products like the pulses, other products, then transport, communication, vegetable, cereal and other products, education. These have gone cheaper. Right? So this is as per the government's data. This not necessarily every time have to do with the current market prices that you are seeing. Okay? So these are the reasons that government have identified with respect to the decline of the inflation. Now, the things which are important with respect to inflation, first is the CPI, which is the consumer price index. Now, as it is mentioning, consumer price index means this is the changing of the prices over a period of time at the consumer's end. Means who is the receiver of that product, who is paying for that product, it is at their end we are checking the changes of the general level of prices, right? So it is a macroeconomic indicator for the inflation, because right now what prices you are paying, based upon that only if the inflation is calculated, what kind of changes of price you are observing, that will be there, right? So it is at the consumer's end. Now, why CPI is being utilized? For inflation targeting. So, as per the RBI mandate, 4% plus minus 2% is the inflation window that RBI is seeking. Matlab, 4% se plus minus 2%, it should not go beyond 6%, it should not move below 2%. So, there is a window of 4% plus minus 2% is being kept by RBI, and that is based upon the CPI data. right? Apart from that, the deflators in the national account. So dekho, whenever the GDP is calculated, there is one nominal GDP which is based upon that particular year's prices, and another is the real GDP based upon the prices of the base year. So in that case, the deflator can also be assessed with respect to having idea regarding the inflation. Agar aapko idea hai inflation ka, then you will easily get the deflator, because in that case the nominal GDP and then divided by the real GDP. So the real GDP will be calculated by reducing the inflationary aspect, right? Then the published by CSO, so the body which is responsible for publishing the inflation related data is the Central Statistical Office, right? So this is the office, and this office lies under the MOSPI, which is the Ministry of Statistics and the Program Implementation. So MOSPI is the nodal ministry which is for the CPI release, and the CSO is the office. Now the base year is for this purpose is 2012. Now these are the components which are utilized for calculating the all India CPI. So first is the CPI for the industrial worker. This data is being calculated by Labor Bureau. Then CPI for the agricultural laborers, again the Labor Bureau compiles this data. CPI for the rural laborers, so again the Labor Bureau is responsible for having collection of this data. The next is about the CPI for the urban non-manual employees, right? So again there is the data that is being compiled under the MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Okay? So these are the components that are constituting the CPI. Now see, in the previous some discussions, we have also talked about the WPI, which is the wholesale price index. Now see, when we talk about wholesale, this is at the producer's end, matlab, not producer, at the wholesaler's end. Matlab, if you are taking some things in the wholesale, generally those things are appearing comparatively cheaper to you, and then you sell to the final consumer. So when the prices are being checked at the wholesaler's end, they are considered as the wholesale price index, so WPI. And when it is at the consumer's end, it is the CPI. So there is a difference between the CPI and WPI. Now another difference with respect to the CPI and WPI is that with respect to the RBI's inflation targeting, they are checking the data of CPI and not the WPI. Another difference between CPI and WPI, CPI also includes the services. WPI does not include services, and this can become a probable and the tentative question with respect to the UPSC examination. In the CPI, the food have the larger weight, and in the WPI, the fuel group have the larger weight. So food ka weightage roughly nearly equivalent to 50% in the consumer price index, right? So with respect to CPI, there are few questions, right? Which of the following brings out the consumer price index number for the industrial worker? Just now we have discussed. Answer this question. Another question 2020 में पूछा गया. Consider the following statements. The weightage of the food in the CPI is higher than the wholesale price index. WPI does not capture changes in the price of the services. CPI does. Just now I have mentioned. The Reserve Bank of India now adopted WPI as the key measure for the inflation and to decide on changing of the key policy rates. Now you have to answer this. I have already explained this particular question entirely, right? Next and the last article with respect to the major news is about the Union Cabinet approved the 4 semiconductor project under the India Semiconductor Mission. Now we know that from the perspective of, let's say, the renewable energy, from the perspective of different other tactical and some kind of other superiority, whether it is with respect to manufacturing of some goods like the smartphones, like the battery storage, you will need important semiconductor devices and also need the access to certain critical minerals. So these are the important aspect for the economy. So whenever there is any specific news or any discussion regarding these things, so you should be having an awareness regarding this. Now from the syllabus perspective, Indian economy, infrastructure and investment mein, this is an important topic, and there the electronics and the semiconductor manufacturing, strategic importance of technology, all these are the important things. Now India Semiconductor Mission, there are certain factual things which are being provided, right? So it is approved in 2021, then 76,000 crore was the outlay. Not that important. It was initiated in 2021. The projects are located, which are the new, 4 new projects have been allocated, 2 in Odisha, 1 in Punjab and 1 in Andhra Pradesh. Now total there are now 10 projects that are there. Now Ministry of Electronics and the Information Technology is the ministry. Now what will be the objective? Again, see, if you have to promote the semiconductor industry, obviously you will be having to provide some kind of financial support to these particular firms which are being established, right? So the financial support for the investment in the semiconductor fabrication. So basically, suppose karo there is a chip. For fabrication of that particular chip, there will be development of, let's say, silicon wafer, and then apart from that, the entire fabrication related value chain. To support that, there will be financial support needed. Then the display manufacturing, chip design, all these things are primarily being done outside India. Matlab generally hota kya, the countries like Taiwan, countries like China, on which we are mainly dependent upon these chip fabrication. Generally assembling ka kaam is being done in India, but the niche technologies like the fabrication, that also should be there in India in order to reduce the dependency on these countries. The way right now the global mahal is there, the countries have to ensure that the value chain should not disrupted if the relation between two countries get deteriorated. For example, too much dependence on China is harmful, too much dependence on US is harmful. That's why India should strategically put its egg in different baskets, so that अगर एक country के साथ relations deteriorate होते हैं, तो that should not be major worry. Also, it will be ensuring strengthening of the India's integration in the global electronics value chain, because we can also export those products to other countries. Now, what is the focus? Focus is on first setting up on the chip manufacturing plants for the fabrication, then the packaging and testing unit. Once the fabrication is done, there have to be packaging. Like suppose kar ek chip bana li, then you will put, like for example, for this mouse also there will be a chip, for the smartphone also there will be a chip. Once that chip is fabricated, then there will be packaging in the needed module, and then there are testing units also. Then supporting the startup which are doing the chip design, that is also one such thing with respect to the semiconductor mission. Then training young engineer, that is also one such thing, because human resources are very important. You should be having those academic professionals, along with that the industry expertise, right? Then bringing the global companies to invest in India, because some companies have experience in order to build and develop these things, and that's why those should also be contributing in India. That's why to attract those companies. Now, what are the key schemes? First is the semiconductor fabrication scheme, where the financial support is being provided. So for semiconductor fabrication, matlab integrating different circuits and all these things will be there. There will be 50%, up to 50% financial support. Then display fabrication scheme. So with respect to displays or digital displays that you are seeing, the fabrication of that, and design linked incentive. Matlab there will be promotion of this thing. Again, the startups which are functioning on the design related aspects. So startup or the MSMEs which are working on the semiconductor designing, right? So all these things ke liye we are providing the financial support, which is the major thing as part of this particular India Semiconductor mission. Now there is another program under this, is the Semicon India program. So this is a flagship event. Again, what will be the things that you can expect as a part of this Semicon India program? There will be collaboration between the industry leaders, then the policy makers. Industry leaders means the companies, policy makers means the political officials and other officials, academia, matlab those who are doing the theoretical research, then the startups who are actualizing those particular products, and then there are other stakeholders like the human resources and also. All these should cooperate, right? What will be the significance? Again, see, this is an emerging market. Whether it is critical technology, whether it is renewable technology, everywhere you will need the semiconductor devices. And if you will have the footprint as early as possible, then you will be able to create your own market, because this market is of $110 billion, $110 billion by 2030. This data you can utilize in order to substantiate your answer regarding the semiconductor related importance, that why this particular semiconductor sector is important from the India's perspective. Then apart from that, yes, we have already discussed that if we are able to have our own industry ecosystem developed for the semiconductor, then we will be able to prevent any kind of external pressure. Like right now, you might be seeing the Trump's statement with respect to different things, whether it is oil, whether it is with respect to the critical minerals, whether it is with respect to different other countries. Right? So in that case, India will not be dictated by other countries in order to change its policy if it is having comparatively diversified value chain, right? So that's the thing. Now these were the main news. Now let's discuss certain other quick updates. So first is regarding the short transfer. Now what happened actually, that recently CAG has put a report which has highlighted that historically, it's not like the present government or the previous government CAG is talking about. CAG is saying like after roughly 1970s, there have been in multiple governments ka duration mein, there have been short transfer that have been observed. So this is of 3.69 lakh crore. What is short transfer? Means for certain purpose you have accumulated the fund, but that fund is not provided to that particular intended benefit. For example, just a simple example, you have collected cess for education, you have collected cess for health. Now that particular fund was collected in Consolidated Fund of India. After the parliamentary approval, that fund was not provided to the intended schemes jahan par wo fund jana chahiye tha. That's how the short transfer is there. So this is a simple concept which says that the intended fund was not transferred to the needed areas jahan par जिस पर्पस के लिए that was collected. So cess is basically a statutory levy which is collected on and above the taxes as some percentage, and this goes in the non-divisible pool of the Consolidated Fund of India. मतलब ये divide नहीं होता with the states, right? Initially collected in the CFI and then eventually through the parliamentary approval, it is provided for the intended schemes. Next is regarding Ideonella Sakaensis, right? So this is a bacterium, simple words में ये एक bacteria है, recently identify हुआ near a plant which is there in Japan. What kind of plant was there? It is a plastic bottle recycling facility. So near that recycling facility, this bacteria Ideonella Sakaensis that was observed, now that was eating upon that particular polymer of plastic. Now see, just assume a scenario. Right now we are facing difficulties with respect to plastics, like the sustainable utilization and degradation of plastic, so that there will be the environment and the earth will be getting rid of a lot of plastic because it is not a biodegradable element, right? So if there are bacterium which are feeding upon these particular polymers, then in that case it can be utilized for ensuring the earth sustainable, okay? If it is done at the large scale. So the researchers have identified a bacteria which can degrade the polyethylene tetraphthalate most commonly used in the bottles for food and packaging. मतलब जो bottles use करते हैं, those particular bottles which are of plastic, that is using the polyethylene tetraphthalate, ठीक है? So next is about the Tato 2 hydroelectric project. So recently Cabinet Committee on the Economic Affairs have approved the construction of the Tato 2 hydroelectric project in the Shiomi district of Arunachal Pradesh. So Tato 2 Arunachal Pradesh, this is one such fact that you can remember. Apart from that, see, installed capacity generally UPSC does not ask. मतलब उतने trivial facts पे नहीं जाता. The region UPSC may ask, ठीक है? And apart from that, maybe implementation agency, so joint venture between the Northeastern Electric Power Corporation Limited and the government of Arunachal Pradesh. Generally, the chances are more with respect to the state, right? Other hydroelectric project, there is a Subansiri project, Kamen project, and the Heo project, hydroelectricity project that are there in the Arunachal Pradesh state. So Tato 2, Arunachal Pradesh. Next is about the APAR ID. So CBSE recently have mandated the 12-digit automated permanent academic account registry. So this particular automated permanent academic account registry, this is a database jahan par you will have all the things with respect to you. For example, you as a student, if you are having this APAR ID, there will be all the certificate, all the transfers, all different kind of schools that you have attended, the mark sheets and all these will be available at the one place, so that there will be very less chances for the fraudulent passing of the classes. Generally, it happens sometime because of the lack of transparency. These issues are being observed. So, one nation, one student ID, this was the idea in the National New Educational Policy, जो कि 2020 में आई थी, right? So the Union Ministry of Education will be the nodal authority, and then it provides the unified and accessible academic experience to all the students, whether it is school, whether it is other institutions, whether it is you as a student, all can access through this particular ID your entire academic data. So this will ensure the transparency and reduce any kind of fraud activity. So that's why the CBSE has mandated the use of 12-digit apart for the class 9th and 11th students for registration, and list of the candidate submission for class 10th and 12th ahead of the 2026 board examination in order to ensure the transparency with respect to the examination. Next is about the Shresht initiative. So the Union Ministry has launched the State Health Regulatory Excellence Index, Shresht, which is a national initiative for benchmarking and strengthening the state drug regulatory system. So in order to ensure that there should be uniform standards across all the different states ka drug regulatory authority, this Shresht initiative has been laid out. So this will be benchmarking and strengthening the state drug regulatory system. Now, which is agency which has proposed this? It is the Central Drug Standard Control Organization, which is at the nodal level, at the central level, the authority which is for the standards control of the drug, right? What it will be helping? It will be ensuring the improvement in the performance of the drug authority across India, ensuring the quality and the safety of drug. Agar suppose karo, if there is a uniform authority for entire drug related management, then there will be comparatively better management, better security and safety standards that can be ensured. Now the indices are based upon few indicator, for example, human resources, infrastructure, licensing activities, surveillance activities, and apart from that, the responsiveness. So based upon this, based upon assessing all these things of the body, then the rankings will be provided, right? Next is about the section 152 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. So the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita was brought after replacing the Indian Penal Code of 1860. Now hua kya? There was section 124A in the Indian Penal Code which was related to sedition. So before independence also this particular section was misutilized a lot. Now in 2023, when the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita conceptualized hua, and last year when the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita was adopted, this particular section 152 of the BNS had the equivalent provision of the sedition, not directly mentioning about sedition, but the similar thing. For example, endangering sovereignty, unity, integrity of India. So if any person purposely, knowingly, through words, signs, visible representation, excites or attempt to excite the secession, armed rebellion, or subserving activities, can be imprisoned for the life for 7 years along with the fine. So basically, there, if suppose karo, if that is interpreted, if you have given some speech which the government might think that that is going against the or exciting or attempt to excite the secession, armed rebellion, subservice to the nation. So if it is hampering the sovereignty, territorial integrity, then you might be punished. Now see, for genuine cases it is okay, but then multiple instances might be there regarding which Supreme Court has mentioned that this can be utilized or for the potential abuse. So this may be hampering the freedom of speech and expression and other things which are mentioned in the fundamental right. So that's why it has just observed that it is for the potential abuse. Agar aisa hota hai, then even it can be later on considered as the unconstitutional also and then can be removed, right? The elders group. So the elders group is the international stateswomen and the statesmen's group which has called that the situation which is going on in Gaza is unfolding in the form of a genocide. Okay? So this elders group that was conceptualized by Nelson Mandela in 2007, which was the group of the global leaders where they were meeting, where they were discussing the key important issues, right? So not that much significant, but yes, it is a leaders platform jahan par different countries leaders are meeting informally and they are assessing the measures taken by different countries, what kind of impact it is going to put on the peace, justice, human rights, right? So the ultimate objective is to ensure that there should be peace, justice, human rights in order to ensure a sustainable planet. Okay? So it is also going for the private diplomacy and the public advocacy. मतलब different leaders के साथ informally मिलकर they are talking on a lot of issues. Now there are two prominent framework under this. There is a advisory council and then there is a elders team. So this particular council is responsible for the financial and the other managements, and then elders team is there for the consultation and all. Next is the push and pull transaction. So NPCI ने बोला है कि in future we can remove the pull transaction. Now you might have seen a lot of scam related things. Sometimes you are rung up with a call where the person is saying ki dekho you have won a lottery, now you have to type the 4-digit code on this particular box which you are seeing and then the amount will be credited to your account. Now see, the OTP or the PIN is needed for transferring money rather than receiving. So sometimes we are being deceived by these kind of scammer. So that's why the NPCI is saying कि भाई अभी तो हम दोनों allow कर रहे हैं, push transfer transactions and the pull transaction. Push transactions means I scan a QR code, then I authenticate with my PIN and I am transferring money. So it is being initiated by me, who is the transferer of money, not the beneficiary. Pull transactions are beneficiary. Suppose karo I request money from you, I give you a link, then you will enter your code, you will allow that, and then the money will be received by me. So I am initiating a transaction being a receiver or the beneficiary. So this is the pull transaction. So in this case, NPCI is saying that it can remove the pull transactions later on, right? Next is about the Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone. So recently Supreme Court ने एक appoint किया panel and that had warned against the Char Dham all-weather road connectivity project which is going on in the Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone. So this particular eco-sensitive zone, the concept that was formed under the Environmental Protection Act of 1986. Now होता क्या है? Suppose करो there is a national park. Now national park की boundary खत्म होती है, the boundaries of national park ended. Now after that boundary, suddenly if you do all the economic activity or disrupting activity, it might hamper the forest or that particular zone of biodiversity. So there is an eco-sensitive zone roughly of 10 km in the periphery that is being developed, which acts as a shock absorber. Matlab, if there is any activity going on outside, that should be impacting to some extent only in the eco-sensitive zone, but not the core areas, right? So as a shock absorber, this particular region is being created. Now the Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone was created in 2012, which includes the region from the Gaumukh to Uttar Kashi. Now हुआ क्या इसमें कि there have been certain road project and right now we are seeing a lot of disaster. When you are doing the development in those particular riverine region or the river plains, the destruction can be very, very harmful and that can be creating a large scale disaster. So that's why the Supreme Court जो panel appoint किया था, that have mentioned that this particular Char Dham all weather road project, widening project can be harmful for that particular ecosystem. Okay. Now in that particular region there is zonal master plan which is basically based upon the eco-sensitive approaches like the watershed approach and all, and that will be approved by the state government in general, right? So all these things are there, but they have cautioned against those particular projects, right? So this is it with respect to the today's News Today discussion. So I hope that you might have find this discussion productive. There must be certain questions that are there in front of you on your screen. Try to attempt that and all the questions that I have asked you, and apart from that, what are your observation with respect to the things that we had discussed? Do comment regarding that, right? So, and after that also go to the Digital Current Affairs portal in order to access more question on this, right? So thank you everyone. Have a great day. I hope the things are clear to you.